What does it take to start a nation? Not just to win a war, but to build something entirely new, to stand up against the greatest empire in the world with little more than courage, conviction, and borrowed cannons. To write ideals like liberty and equality while grappling with slavery, civil strife, and rebellion. This isn't just the story of muskets and redcoats, it's the story of ideas of nation building and of the fragile, chaotic birth of the American Republic. Stay with us because the revolution is only the beginning. Welcome to the Story of America Part 2, Revolution and Republic from 1776 to 1820. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, asserting that all men are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights. But ideals alone wouldn't win freedom. The colonies now faced the British military, the most powerful in the world. The Revolutionary War was brutal, uncertain, and often demoralizing. George Washington led the Continental Army, struggling with poor supplies, desertion, and repeated defeats. But key victories, like Trenton, Saratoga, and eventually Yorktown, turned the tide. At Saratoga, American forces captured a British army, convincing France to join the war. With French ships and troops, the American cause gained momentum. Finally, in 1781, Washington and French forces surrounded the British at Yorktown, Virginia. General Cornwallis surrendered. 2 years later, the Treaty of Paris was signed. The United States was officially independent. But now came the hard part, governing. The first government of the United States was formed under the Articles of Confederation. It was a loose alliance of 13 states, more like separate countries than one nation. There was no president, no national court system, and Congress couldn't collect taxes. The result? Chaos. States argued over borders and trade. The economy tanked, soldiers went unpaid. In 1786, a farmer named Daniel Shays led a rebellion in Massachusetts, protesting taxes and foreclosures. The federal government couldn't stop it. Local militias barely could. Leaders realized something had to change. The country they had fought so hard to create might fall apart. In 1787, delegates from 12 states met in Philadelphia to fix the Articles. Instead, they wrote an entirely new framework, the U.S. Constitution. It created a federal government with 3 branches: legislative, Congress; executive, the president; and judicial, the courts. It allowed for taxation, a national army, and regulation of trade, but it also included checks and balances. No one branch would dominate. After intense debate, especially over state versus federal power, the Constitution was ratified in 1788. The first 10 amendments, known as the Bill of Rights, were added soon after to guarantee individual freedoms: free speech, religion, the right to bear arms, protection from unreasonable searches, and more. In 1789, George Washington became the first president of the United States. A revolution had been won. Now a republic had begun. Washington set the tone for what a president should be: restrained, principled, above party politics. But politics quickly took over anyway. 2 factions emerged. Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton, wanted a strong central government and closer ties to Britain. Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson, wanted power in the hands of states and sympathy toward revolutionary France. Hamilton, as Secretary of the Treasury, created a national bank, consolidated state debts, and taxed whiskey, leading to the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794. Washington sent troops to put it down, showing that the federal government now had real power. In foreign affairs, France was in the midst of its own bloody revolution. Jeffersonians wanted to support it. Federalists were wary. Washington chose neutrality, a precedent for future presidents. After 2 terms, Washington stepped down, refusing to become a king. In his farewell address, he warned against political parties and foreign entanglements. Few listened. Washington was succeeded by John Adams, a brilliant but prickly Federalist. His presidency was defined by conflict at home and abroad. With France attacking American ships, Adams prepared for war. At home, he signed the Alien and Sedition Acts, which allowed the government to imprison critics and deport immigrants. It was seen by many as a betrayal of the Bill of Rights. Jefferson and Madison responded with the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, arguing that states could nullify federal laws. The country was on edge. In 1800, Adams lost re-election to Jefferson in what became known as the Revolution of 1800, a peaceful transfer of power between parties. For the first time in modern history, a new leader took control without war or bloodshed. It was a triumph for democracy. Thomas Jefferson envisioned a nation of small farmers, free from entangling alliances and aristocratic rule. But as president, he made a surprising move, the Louisiana Purchase. In 1803, Jefferson bought land from France that doubled the size of the U.S. from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. He sent Lewis and Clark to explore the vast territory, mapping rivers, meeting native nations, and reaching the Pacific. It was a bold expansion, but also the beginning of a new frontier that would bring conflict. Native peoples were pushed further west, slavery expanded into new lands, and the young republic grew more divided. Jefferson also cut the military and tried to stay out of global conflicts, but American ships were being attacked by British and French navies. The Embargo Act of 1807, meant to punish them, instead devastated the American economy. In 1809, James Madison took office. Tensions with Britain boiled over. British ships were impressing American sailors. Frontier settlers clashed with native tribes, some backed by the British. In 1812, Congress declared war on Britain. The War of 1812 was chaotic. The U.S. tried, and failed, to invade Canada. The British burned Washington, D.C., including the White House. But at Fort McHenry, American forces held firm, inspiring Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner. And in 1815, Andrew Jackson led a decisive victory at the Battle of New Orleans, after the war had technically ended. The Treaty of Ghent restored the status quo. No land changed hands. But the war gave Americans a new sense of identity. They had stood up to Britain again, and survived. After the war, the country entered a period of relative unity and optimism. Madison's successor, James Monroe, presided over what became known as the Era of Good Feelings. The Federalist Party collapsed. Only the Democratic Republicans remained strong. The economy grew. New states joined the Union. A sense of national purpose took hold. But beneath the surface, tensions remained. Slavery expanded in the South and westward territories. Native American lands continued to be seized. Economic inequality and sectional divides simmered. In 1820, Congress passed the Missouri Compromise. Missouri would enter as a slave state, Maine as a free one, keeping the balance. But it was only a temporary fix to a growing crisis. From revolution to republic, from fragile beginnings to bold expansion, the United States had transformed, but it was still a work in progress. Its ideals were powerful, but imperfectly applied. Its unity was strong, but cracking. In Part 3 of the Story of America, we enter a new phase, one of expansion, conflict, and reform. Westward dreams, native resistance, the rise of industry, and the looming shadow of civil war. Subscribe and join us as the American story continues.